In 2011, WWE officially signed April Mendez, who adopted the in-ring name AJ Lee. She would start off her career in NXT on Season 3 and the first women's edition of that brand. Even though she was unsuccessful in the tournament, AJ Lee ended up becoming the biggest superstar amongst those women. After being called up to the main roster, she was finding success when they paired her with Daniel Bryan. This psychotic girlfriend character would define her role in the company, later positioning her to work with CM Punk, Kane, Dolph Ziggler, and even John Cena. Yeah, she had an interesting time when working under this gimmick. Ultimately, this led her to taking on the role of being Monday Night Raw's general manager. Once she wrapped up that storyline, AJ Lee became the best Divas champion of all time, in my opinion. At her time, she had the longest Divas Championship reign. She was continuing to rise and climb the ladder to superstardom. AJ Lee teamed up with Paige at WrestleMania 31, where they were victorious over the Bella Twins. The next night on Monday Night Raw, she was involved in a 6-woman tag team match and randomly retired right after that. The wrestling fans were confused and the women's division just lost their greatest assets. This was very strange considering the fact that WWE was focusing on pushing the women's division in the future. AJ Lee was also in her prime at only 27 years old. The rumors surrounding the departure of the superstar claims that CM Punk's lawsuit played a role in her decision, but we will never know the true story as to why she decided to hang up the boots so early unless she comes forward and says so. However, today we will embark on a journey and look at an alternate timeline where AJ Lee never left WWE in 2015. She will be in her prime and she's ready to be part of the women's division. Let's see how AJ Lee's career would have transpired with the 4 horsewomen from NXT. We will start off this video right after WrestleMania 31, where AJ Lee and Paige were victorious. Before Lee retired, Paige and AJ were in a storyline together where they were romantically interested in each other. There was supposed to be a huge payoff to that angle, but we never got it. If AJ never left the company, I could have seen a long storyline between these two women in that year. It would have most likely started off with a singles match between AJ Lee and Paige to determine the #1 contender for Nikki Bella's championship. Paige would lose this match but continue to support her girlfriend AJ Lee. During AJ's match with Nikki, Paige turns heel and betrays her friend. Nikki Bella retains her championship, and Paige becomes the most hated woman in that division. Throughout the rest of the summer, Paige would keep bullying AJ Lee and even team up with the Bella Twins to dominate the women's division. Eventually, even Paige would turn on Nikki Bella too and win the Divas Championship. This Paige is ruthless and she's willing to do anything to become the champion. For the rest of the year, AJ Lee would get her redemption and capture the Divas Championship to close off that year, closing that storyline as well. This should keep AJ busy for the rest of this year. In the following year, AJ Lee meets her greatest challenge, the promising rookies Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks. If you remember, AJ Lee dropped a pipe bomb exposing the women's division, claiming that all the women aren't real competitors and only want 15 minutes of fame. Well, this is when you insert young and upcoming stars who want to prove that they belong in this division. Therefore, all 3 women get tied up in some sort of storyline with AJ Lee. Lee would probably have a promo where she feels fully confident that she could defeat all 3 of these women. This leads to the general manager making the announcement that there will be a fatal 4-way match at WrestleMania 32 for the brand new women's championship. Charlotte would win by making Sasha Banks tap out, while Ric Flair would hold down AJ Lee from breaking up the submission. Until the draft, AJ Lee and Charlotte Flair would feud on Monday Night Raw. In the end of the feud, Charlotte would remain as champion going into the draft. At that draft, AJ would get drafted to SmackDown Live. As a result of AJ being this extra draft pick in the SmackDown Women's division, Alexa Bliss isn't the last pick in the draft and she remains on NXT a little longer. AJ Lee and Alexa Bliss have very similar personalities, and I really believe that AJ Lee would have changed Alexa's career. Anyways, AJ Lee becomes the first SmackDown Women's Champion, and for the rest of that year, AJ Lee and Becky Lynch would feud for the title. Lynch would defeat AJ Lee in the first ever women's TLC match, so it's a pretty rough end to AJ's year. Into the new year of 2017, and AJ Lee and Becky Lynch would continue to feud for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Ultimately, at WrestleMania 33, we are still getting the six-pack match, except AJ Lee will now take over the spot of Alexa Bliss. Becky Lynch defeats all 5 other women to remain as the champion. AJ Lee's time on SmackDown is coming to an end as she is moved over to Monday Night Raw during the Superstar Shakeup. Alexa Bliss is now called up to the main roster to be featured in a feud with Becky Lynch for the SmackDown Women's Championship. With AJ Lee moving over to Monday Night Raw, she will basically play the role of Alexa Bliss this year. Lee will now be involved in a feud with the current Raw Women's Champion, Bayley. After their first match, AJ would win the Raw Women's title to become the first woman to ever win both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships. Lee would then move on to feud with Sasha Banks for the summer of 2017, where they both exchanged the championships back and forth. WWE loved to troll Sasha Banks for some reason, so sorry Sasha, but this is what will most likely happen and you will not be champion for a long period of time. Throughout 2017, AJ Lee aligns herself with Nia Jax as her bodyguard, and this helps her hold onto that championship for another 6 months and the rest of 2017. After that, in the year of 2018, AJ Lee begins to disrespect her bodyguard, Nia Jax. In real life, Alexa Bliss ridiculed Nia Jax about her weight, which was a pretty stupid character because it was really messed up and didn't really do much, I guess they were building sympathy for Nia Jax. But knowing AJ Lee, she would not approve of the storyline because she does not really do things she doesn't believe in. Therefore, the storyline would revolve around the fact that AJ Lee is losing most of her matches by herself and she isn't grateful for all the help Nia Jax has done over the last 7 months. This leads to a feud between former partners where Nia Jax completely destroys AJ Lee and wins the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. Nia Jax will now stay as champion until dropping it to Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam. Rousey will definitely become the champion. In the meantime, AJ Lee captures the Money in the Bank briefcase at the pay-per-view Money in the Bank. Rather than cashing it in on the same night like Alexa Bliss did this year in real life, Lee will be holding onto that briefcase for the right moment at the right time. So as of right now in this timeline, Charlotte is the SmackDown Women's Champion, Ronda is the Raw Women's Champion, and it's August of 2018. For the rest of that year, AJ Lee just feuds with random women on Raw and does nothing really too special. However, by the end of the year, Becky still turns heel and becomes the SmackDown Women's Champion. The same thing on SmackDown happens with Asuka becoming the champion at TLC, Becky breaking her face, and having a Twitter feud with Ronda Rousey. We are now in the final year of this alternate timeline, 2019. Some very interesting things are going to happen this year for the road to WrestleMania. Becky Lynch wins the Royal Rumble, and on the next night on Raw, she shows up to tell Ronda Rousey that she will be challenging her in the main event of WrestleMania 35. To everyone's surprise, AJ Lee gets involved in this storyline. She formally announces that she wants to cash in her Money in the Bank briefcase to officially become a part of this match, making it a triple threat match. Lee could have cashed in on any night and have a guaranteed title victory, but she's been grinding for a decade to bring relevance to the women's division, and she's not going to miss out on the biggest match in women's history. This is her lifelong dream. Therefore, there is no Charlotte Flair in this match. Instead, Asuka and Charlotte will battle in a WrestleMania rematch for the SmackDown Women's Championship. At WrestleMania, Becky Lynch defeats them to become the Raw Women's Champion. Following the loss, Lee and Becky would start another feud for the Raw Women's Championship, but AJ Lee would be unsuccessful in capturing the championship. After being in the title picture for so long, she won't be featured in the Raw or SmackDown Women's Title Championship feuds anymore. Instead, she will team up with someone who is very similar to her, Alexa Bliss. These two would capture the Tag Team Women's Championships in July and start a dominant run as tag champions. For the rest of 2019, AJ Lee and Alexa Bliss remain in the tag team division until eventually dropping the titles to the Kabuki Warriors, and that is everything for 2019. That sums up the last 5 years in this other universe with AJ Lee. As you can see, she would have been a huge part of the women's division, especially considering the fact that Vince McMahon was a huge fan of hers. Alexa Bliss would have probably been negatively impacted because she would have lost those opportunities, but overall, I think the women's division would have been much better with AJ Lee. Hopefully, she decides to make some sort of return someday because we truly miss her. And that is it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Pllana, and I'll see you all on the next video.
And I got this soul.